Welcome to LMJ English, where we bring you captivating stories and insightful content to help you learn English through storytelling. Today, we dive into the incredible rise of Haiphong, Vietnam, and how it has become a global manufacturing powerhouse. If you enjoy engaging stories that expand your knowledge, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates. Haiphong's rapid economic growth. A decade ago, Haiphong was a quiet coastal city in northern Vietnam, known more for its fishing villages and modest shipping activities than for industrial might. Small wooden boats lined the harbors, and the rhythm of daily life was dictated by the sea. But beneath this seemingly tranquil surface, a transformation was brewing, one that would turn Haiphong into a manufacturing powerhouse and a key player in the global economy. The change began with an ambitious vision: to reclaim thousands of acres of land from the ocean and build an economic zone that could rival the world's leading industrial centers. Engineers and construction crews worked tirelessly, dredging the seabed and reshaping the coastline to make way for massive factories, warehouses, and infrastructure. What had once been untouched waters soon became a landscape of steel and concrete, buzzing with activity. Central to this transformation was the construction of a deep-water port designed to handle some of the largest cargo ships in the world. With its strategic location along the South China Sea, Haiphong's port became an essential gateway for trade, not just within Southeast Asia but across the globe. The port's state-of-the-art facilities allowed for direct shipping routes to the United States and Europe, cutting transportation costs and increasing Vietnam's competitiveness in international markets. As foreign investment poured in, global corporations took notice. Major manufacturers, seeking an alternative to China's rising costs and trade restrictions, saw Haiphong as the perfect destination. Companies like LG Electronics and Pegatron, one of Apple's main suppliers, set up production facilities, bringing jobs and technology to the city. Entire industrial parks emerged seemingly overnight, and new highways connected Haiphong to major economic hubs like Hanoi and Shenzhen, reducing transportation time and streamlining supply chains. The results were staggering. Haiphong's exports soared, surpassing $26 billion annually. What was once a modest trading post had become a critical link in the global supply chain. The city's economy boomed, growing at rates far above the national average. Skilled workers flooded in from across Vietnam, drawn by new opportunities in high-tech manufacturing, logistics, and engineering. Haiphong had not just grown, it had reinvented itself. But this transformation was about more than just economic figures. The rapid development reshaped the lives of the people who called Haiphong home. Fishermen who once depended on the sea found new careers in factories and logistics centers. Families that had lived in small wooden houses for generations now had access to better roads, schools, and healthcare. The city's skyline, once defined by low-rise homes and fishing boats, now featured towering cranes, modern office buildings, and industrial complexes. Despite its success, Haiphong faces challenges ahead. The city must balance rapid growth with sustainability, ensuring that its industrial expansion does not come at the cost of the environment. The deep-water port and industrial zones have created unprecedented economic opportunities, but they also bring concerns about pollution and urban congestion. As Haiphong continues its journey to becoming a global manufacturing hub, it must find ways to maintain its momentum while protecting the quality of life for its residents. From a humble coastal town to one of the busiest ports in the world, Haiphong's transformation is a testament to Vietnam's economic ambition and resilience. It is a city that has rewritten its own destiny, proving that with vision, investment, and determination, even the most unassuming places can rise to global prominence. Impact of US-China trade war on Haiphong. Haiphong's rise as a manufacturing powerhouse was not just the result of Vietnam's economic strategy, it was also fueled by global trade tensions. When former US President Donald Trump launched a trade war against China, imposing tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, the ripple effects were felt across Asia. Many companies, eager to avoid the rising costs of doing business in China, scrambled to find alternative manufacturing hubs. For them, Haiphong emerged as an ideal solution. By 2018, major corporations like LG Electronics and Pegatron, one of Apple's key suppliers, had begun shifting production from China to Vietnam. Foxconn, another giant in the electronics industry, followed suit, recognizing Haiphong's potential as a key link in their supply chain. The city's rapid industrial expansion was no longer just a national achievement. It had become a global business strategy fueled by the shifting tides of international trade. At the heart of this transformation was Deep Sea, an industrial real estate developer that played a crucial role in turning Haiphong's reclaimed land into a thriving economic hub. With billions of dollars in investment, Deep Sea transformed isolated fishing areas into vast industrial zones, complete with pre-built factories, advanced logistics facilities, and modern infrastructure. The company attracted more than 170 clients, including some of the world's biggest electronics manufacturers. As businesses flocked to Haiphong, the city saw a surge in foreign direct investment. New factories and production facilities sprang up at an astonishing pace, bringing thousands of jobs and boosting Vietnam's role in global supply chains. The deep water port, which had been built to handle increased trade, quickly became a major export hub for goods headed to the United States. By the end of 2019, Haiphong's economy had grown by more than 17%, far outpacing Vietnam's national growth rate. But while the US-China trade war initially brought prosperity, it also introduced uncertainty. Many companies worried that Vietnam could be the next target of US tariffs, especially as its trade surplus with the US skyrocketed. Critics argued that Chinese businesses were using Vietnam as a backdoor to evade tariffs, shipping goods through the country to disguise their origin before sending them to American markets. The numbers seem to support this claim. Vietnam's exports to the US had surged in the same categories that had been heavily restricted for Chinese goods as discussions of a second Trump presidency gained traction. Fears of new trade restrictions loomed over Haiphong's booming industries. Analysts warned that potential tariffs on Vietnamese exports could stall business expansion, forcing companies to reconsider their long-term investments. The uncertainty made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future as trade policies could shift unpredictably. Despite these challenges, Haiphong remained resilient. Business leaders and policymakers understood that to sustain growth they needed to focus on diversification and adaptability. Vietnam had already signed free trade agreements with over 25 countries, giving Haiphong the flexibility to redirect exports to other markets if needed. Additionally, ongoing infrastructure projects, such as the expansion of the Deep Sea port and the construction of a new railway connecting Haiphong to China, promised to keep the city at the center of global trade. The trade war that had once fueled Haiphong's economic boom now threatened to slow its momentum. But the city's rapid rise proved that it was no longer just a secondary player in global manufacturing. It had become a critical hub that companies could not afford to ignore. The next challenge would be navigating an increasingly unpredictable global trade environment while maintaining the rapid growth that had defined Haifeng's success. Infrastructure expansion to support trade. As Haifeng rapidly transformed into a global manufacturing hub, the city's existing infrastructure struggled to keep up with the demands of booming industries and surging exports. Factories were producing goods at an unprecedented rate, and foreign companies relied on fast, efficient transportation to move their products to international markets. However, outdated roads, overcrowded shipping ports, and limited railway connections threatened to slow down the city's economic momentum. Recognizing the urgent need for modernization, the Vietnamese government, in partnership with international investors, launched a massive infrastructure expansion plan. Billions of dollars were allocated to improve roads, expand ports, and build new transportation networks, all designed to turn Haifeng into one of the most efficient trade hubs in Asia. These investments would not only support current growth, but also lay the foundation for Haifeng's long-term role as a key player in global trade. Lac Huyen Deepwater Port, Vietnam's global trade gateway. One of the most significant infrastructure projects in Haifeng's development was the construction of the Lac Huyen Deepwater Port, a state-of-the-art shipping facility that began operations in 2018. Unlike older ports in Vietnam, which could only handle smaller cargo vessels, Lac Huyen was built to accommodate some of the largest container ships in the world. This meant that goods manufactured in Haifeng could now be shipped directly to the United States, Europe, and other major markets, without needing to pass through intermediary ports in Singapore or Hong Kong. The impact of this deep-water port was transformational. Export costs were significantly reduced, shipping times became shorter, and Haifeng's attractiveness as a manufacturing destination increased dramatically. For global corporations like LG Electronics, Pegatron, and Foxconn, which had recently moved production to Haifeng, this development was a major advantage. It allowed them to integrate Vietnam more seamlessly into their global supply chains. Strategically, located on the South China Sea, Lac Huyen is now a vital link in international trade, as nearly one-third of global commerce passes through this crucial maritime route. The port's advanced facilities include automated cargo handling systems, high-capacity cranes, and expanded docking areas capable of processing millions of containers each year. As a result, Haifeng's port is no longer just a national asset. It is now one of the busiest and most important shipping hubs in the world. To further strengthen the port's capacity, additional expansions are already underway. 6 new berths are currently under construction, set to increase cargo handling capabilities by 50% once completed. These improvements will ensure that Haifeng can keep pace with growing export demands and solidify its status as Vietnam's primary gateway to global trade. New expressways faster transport between Haifeng and China. While Haifeng's port opened new doors for international trade, efficient land transportation was equally critical to sustaining its economic momentum. Before 2018, transporting goods between Haifeng and China, a major trading partner, was slow, inefficient, and expensive. Trucks carrying raw materials or finished products often faced long delays on outdated roads, making supply chain operations unpredictable. To solve this problem, the Vietnamese government built a new expressway connecting Haifeng directly to Shenzhen, one of China's largest industrial and technological centers. This expressway, completed in 2018, reduced travel time between the two cities from several days to just 12 hours. The impact of this expressway was immediate and profound. Trade between Vietnam and China surged, as manufacturers could now quickly transport materials, electronic components, and consumer goods between the two economic hubs. For multinational corporations operating in Haiphong, the expressway provided a reliable and cost-effective alternative to maritime shipping, allowing them to adapt more flexibly to shifting trade policies and market demands. Beyond international trade, the expressway also improved domestic logistics, making it easier for goods produced in Haiphong to reach Hanoi and other major Vietnamese cities. The result was a more integrated and efficient national supply chain, reducing costs for businesses and enhancing Haiphong's competitiveness as a top manufacturing destination. $8 billion railway project, the future of Vietnam-China trade. While highways and ports have played a crucial role in Haiphong's rise, railway transport remains an untapped opportunity for further growth. To address this, Vietnam has begun developing an $8 billion railway project, partly funded by China, to create a direct rail connection between Haiphong and the Chinese border. Once completed in 2030, this railway will enable faster and more cost-efficient cargo transport, further strengthening trade ties between Vietnam and China. Unlike road transport, which is subject to traffic congestion and higher fuel costs, rail transport provides a more stable and environmentally friendly alternative for moving large volumes of goods. For Haiphong's industrial sector, this railway could be a game changer. Factories will be able to receive raw materials faster and at lower costs, while finished goods can be exported more efficiently. Additionally, businesses will have the flexibility to shift between rail, road, and maritime transport, making Haiphong's supply chain one of the most resilient and adaptable in Asia. Deep Sea Industrial Park, the backbone of Haiphong's manufacturing boom. Beyond transportation, Haiphong's success also depends on its ability to provide world-class industrial facilities. This is where Deep Sea Industrial Park plays a crucial role. Situated near Lac Huyen Port, Deep Sea has transformed thousands of acres of reclaimed land into a modern industrial complex. Designed to attract foreign investors, Deep Sea offers pre-built factories, logistics centers, and advanced infrastructure, making it easy for businesses to set up operations quickly. The park has already attracted over 170 international companies, including some of the world's biggest electronics and automotive manufacturers. To accommodate future demand, Deep Sea is expanding even further, adding new production zones, logistics hubs, and green energy initiatives. As Haiphong continues to grow, Deep Sea will remain one of the most important drivers of the city's industrial expansion, challenges, and the road ahead. While Haiphong's infrastructure boom has been impressive, rapid growth also brings challenges. Increased industrial activity has led to higher traffic congestion, environmental concerns, and rising land costs. The city must now find a way to balance its economic ambitions with sustainability, ensuring that growth remains both profitable and livable. Furthermore, geopolitical uncertainties, such as the possibility of new U.S. tariffs on Vietnamese goods, could impact Haiphong's long-term trade prospects. To mitigate these risks, Vietnam is diversifying its export markets by strengthening trade agreements with Europe, Japan, and other ASEAN nations. Despite these challenges, Haiphong's infrastructure revolution has positioned it as a global trade powerhouse. With world-class ports, high-speed expressways, and a future railway connection to China, the city is no longer just a regional manufacturing hub. It is a critical link in the world's supply chain. The billions of dollars invested in Haiphong's infrastructure today will determine its future for decades to come. If the city can maintain its momentum while addressing key challenges, it has the potential to become one of the most important industrial and trade centers in Asia, a place where global commerce, innovation, and economic opportunity converge. Vietnam's growing trade surplus with the U.S. In the past decade, Vietnam has experienced an unprecedented surge in trade with the United States, with Haiphong playing a crucial role in this economic shift. As foreign investment poured into the city and multinational corporations set up factories, Vietnam's exports to the U.S. skyrocketed. What started as a manufacturing alternative to China quickly turned into a major trade partnership, propelling Vietnam into the global spotlight. From equimous sixth place to third, Vietnam's rapid rise in U.S. trade. Back in 2018, Vietnam held the position of the sixth largest trade surplus with the U.S. This meant that Vietnam was exporting far more goods to America than it was importing. However, as manufacturing continued to shift from China to Vietnam, this trade imbalance grew rapidly. By 2024, Vietnam's trade surplus with the U.S. had jumped to third place, surpassing Germany and trailing only behind China and Mexico. For Haiphong, this economic shift was monumental. As one of the country's largest export hubs, the city played a central role in this surge. Electronics, garments, furniture, and machinery, made in Haiphong's industrial parks and factories, flooded the U.S. market. Thanks to the Lac Huyen deep water port, goods could now be shipped directly to America, bypassing older, less efficient supply routes, concerns over Vietnam as a backdoor for Chinese goods. However, with Vietnam's trade boom came scrutiny. The rapid increase in exports raised concerns in Washington, where trade officials began to suspect that Chinese companies were using Vietnam to bypass U.S. tariffs. This suspicion stemmed from a striking pattern. Vietnam's exports to the U.S. rose sharply in the same categories of goods that had been hit by Trump's tariffs on China. At the same time, Vietnam's imports from China also increased, leading many to believe that Chinese-made products were being rebranded as Vietnamese goods to avoid tariffs. Analysts pointed to textiles, electronics, and industrial equipment as industries where this trend was most apparent. Reports surfaced of Chinese factories shipping unfinished goods to Vietnam, where minimal processing was done before exporting them to the U.S. under a Made in Vietnam label. This issue put Vietnam under pressure. The U.S. government warned that if evidence of tariff evasion continued to mount, Vietnam could face its own set of trade restrictions, a development that could disrupt Haiphong's booming manufacturing sector, U.S. trade policies, and the risk of tariffs on Vietnam. The possibility of new U.S. tariffs on Vietnamese goods became a real concern as discussions of a second Trump administration gained momentum. Trade experts warned that Vietnam's rising surplus with the U.S. made it a prime target for stricter trade policies. The second Trump administration is way more stringent, it's way more focused, and it's way more intent on stamping on Chinese imports coming into it, said one trade analyst. I think Trump will find a reason to post tariffs on Vietnam. For Haiphong's business community, the uncertainty surrounding U.S. trade policies posed a major challenge. Companies that had invested heavily in Vietnam needed stability to plan future expansions, but the threat of tariffs made long-term investment decisions more difficult. If tariffs were imposed, businesses might be forced to shift production elsewhere, potentially slowing Haiphong's economic momentum. Vietnam's strategy, diversification and trade agreements. Despite these concerns, Vietnam has been proactive in securing its trade future. One of its key strategies has been to diversify export markets beyond the United States. Over the past few years, Vietnam has signed free trade agreements with over 25 countries, including major economies such as the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and Canada. This diversification strategy ensures that if U.S. trade policies become restrictive, Vietnam can redirect its exports to other markets. For example, in 2020, Vietnam signed the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, EVFTA, which eliminated tariffs on 99% of goods traded between Vietnam and the European Union. Additionally, Vietnam has been working to increase domestic production capabilities to reduce dependence on Chinese imports. The government has encouraged local sourcing of raw materials and the development of higher-value industries, such as semiconductor manufacturing and renewable energy production. For Haiphong, these efforts are critical. The city's future as a manufacturing hub depends on its ability to adapt to shifting trade policies and maintain its attractiveness to global investors. By expanding its trade partnerships and strengthening its industrial base, Haiphong is positioning itself to weather potential economic storms and continue its trajectory as one of Asia's fastest-growing trade centers. Looking ahead, the future of Haiphong's trade relations. As Vietnam's trade surplus with the U.S. continues to grow, all eyes are on how Washington will respond. While new tariffs remain a possibility, Haiphong's economic planners are focusing on resilience and flexibility. With ongoing infrastructure projects, diversified markets, and investments in innovation, the city is determined to sustain its growth despite geopolitical uncertainties. Whether the future holds trade restrictions or continued economic expansion, one thing is certain: Haiphong's role in global commerce is stronger than ever. The city has proven that it can adapt, evolve, and thrive, making it a key player in the future of international trade. Potential trade war with Vietnam under Trump. As Vietnam's trade surplus with the United States continued to rise, concerns grew over the possibility of new U.S. tariffs on Vietnamese goods. Haiphong, as a major manufacturing hub, stood at the center of this looming trade dispute. While the city had thrived due to companies shifting production from China to Vietnam, the same forces that had fueled its economic boom now threatened to turn against it. Vietnam in the crosshairs of U.S. trade policy. During Trump's first term, his administration aggressively targeted countries with large trade surpluses with the U.S., imposing heavy tariffs on Chinese goods and pressuring other nations to reduce their trade imbalances. With Vietnam's surplus growing significantly, now the third largest after China and Mexico, many analysts feared that the country would become a prime target for future trade restrictions. Former U.S. trade officials and analysts warned that Trump's America First trade policies could lead to tariffs on Vietnamese electronics, textiles, and machinery, key industries that had flourished in Haiphong. The argument was simple. If China faced tariffs for exporting the same types of goods, why should Vietnam be exempt? Adding to this concern were accusations that Chinese businesses were using Vietnam to bypass tariffs by routing their products through Vietnamese factories before exporting them to the U.S. This raised red flags in Washington, where policymakers viewed Vietnam as a potential trade loophole rather than a fair trading partner. How potential tariffs could impact Haiphong's economy. For Haiphong, the impact of U.S. tariffs could be severe. The city had built its economy around foreign investment and exports, particularly to the U.S. If tariffs were imposed, businesses that had moved to Haiphong to escape China's trade war could once again relocate, seeking other low-cost manufacturing alternatives, such as Mexico, India, or Indonesia. Industries most at risk included electronics manufacturing, including major suppliers like Pegatron and Foxconn, garment and textile production, one of Vietnam's largest exports to the US, industrial machinery and equipment, which had seen rapid growth due to US demand. A sudden drop in US demand for Haiphong's exports could lead to factory closures, job losses, and slower economic growth. For thousands of workers who had moved to Haiphong seeking stable jobs in newly built industrial zones, this would be a devastating blow. Moreover, uncertainty over future trade policies could freeze new investments. Companies considering expanding operations in Haiphong might delay or cancel projects due to concerns over potential tariffs. This uncertainty could disrupt the long-term growth trajectory of the city. Businesses and policymakers brace for impact. Despite the looming threat, Vietnamese leaders and businesses are not standing still. The government has been working behind the scenes to strengthen trade relations with the US, lobbying for continued economic cooperation and demonstrating that Vietnam is a fair and legitimate trading partner. Vietnam has also taken steps to crack down on illegal transshipment practices, ensuring that Chinese goods are not falsely labeled as Vietnamese to evade tariffs. By tightening regulations and increasing inspections, Vietnam hopes to convince the US that its trade surplus is based on genuine growth, not unfair trade practices. At the same time, Haiphong's business community is adapting. Many companies are exploring ways to diversify their export markets, reducing their reliance on the US by expanding sales to Europe, Japan, and ASEAN countries. Others are investing in higher value industries, such as semiconductor production and renewable energy, to reduce their exposure to tariff-sensitive sectors. The future: uncertainty, flexibility, and resilience. While it remains unclear whether new tariffs will be imposed, one thing is certain: Haiphong must prepare for an unpredictable future. The city has already proven its ability to adapt to global economic shifts, and businesses are learning to become more flexible in response to changing trade policies. If tariffs do come, Haiphong's long-term success will depend on its ability to innovate, diversify, and strengthen trade relationships beyond the US. If tariffs do not come, the city will continue to ride the wave of global manufacturing expansion, cementing its status as one of Asia's most important industrial hubs. Regardless of the outcome, Haiphong's rise as a global manufacturing center has already reshaped Vietnam's economy, and the world is watching to see what happens next. Vietnam's long-term economic strategy. As Vietnam faces growing global trade uncertainties, the country is taking strategic steps to ensure its long-term economic resilience. While Haiphong has thrived as a manufacturing hub thanks to shifting supply chains and favorable trade conditions, its continued success will depend on diversification, infrastructure development, and international cooperation. Vietnam's leaders recognize that relying too heavily on one market, especially the US, poses risks. To protect its economic future, the country is expanding trade agreements, investing in high-tech industries, and enhancing its workforce. Haiphong, as a key industrial hub, stands at the center of this long-term strategy. Diversification, reducing reliance on US trade. While the US remains Vietnam's largest export market, Vietnam is actively working to reduce its dependence on American buyers. This strategy is crucial in light of potential US tariffs and changing global trade dynamics. To achieve this, Vietnam has signed free trade agreements, FTAs, with over 25 countries, allowing it to redirect exports to other markets if needed. Some of the most important agreements include the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, EVFTA, eliminates nearly 99% of tariffs between Vietnam and the European Union, opening up new export opportunities. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, strengthens Vietnam's trade ties with Canada, Japan, Australia, and other Pacific nations. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, a massive trade deal that deepens economic integration between Vietnam and China, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN nations. For Haiphong, this diversification means that if U.S. demand decreases, businesses can shift their exports to Europe, Japan, or Southeast Asia. By ensuring a broader customer base, Vietnam protects itself from economic shocks caused by geopolitical changes. Investing in high-tech and value-added industries. Historically, Vietnam's manufacturing sector has been driven by low-cost labor and assembly line production. While this model has worked well for electronics, textiles, and furniture exports, Vietnam's long-term strategy focuses on moving up the value chain. Haiphong is now attracting investment in higher-value industries such as semiconductor and chip manufacturing. As global demand for microchips rises, Vietnam is positioning itself as a key production center. Haiphong has already attracted foreign investment in chip packaging and testing facilities. Renewable energy production. Vietnam is emerging as a leader in solar panel and wind turbine manufacturing, with Haiphong playing a role in exporting these green technologies. Automobile and electric vehicle (EV) production. Companies like VinFast, Vietnam's largest automaker, are expanding production in Haiphong, with plans to export EVs to international markets. By investing in these industries, Haiphong reduces its dependence on low-margin manufacturing and secures its place in the future of global trade. Infrastructure development, the next phase of growth. While Haiphong has already seen massive infrastructure improvements, more projects are underway to support long-term economic expansion. These include expansion of Lac Huyen Deepwater Port. With 6 more berths under construction, the port's capacity will significantly increase, allowing Haiphong to handle more exports and attract additional shipping lines. Completion of the $8 billion Vietnam-China Railway, set to be completed by 2030. This railway will increase trade efficiency with China and lower transportation costs for manufacturers in Haiphong. New industrial parks and smart cities. Haiphong is developing next-generation industrial zones with high-tech infrastructure, attracting investors looking for modern, efficient, and sustainable production facilities. These infrastructure projects ensure that Haiphong will remain one of the most attractive destinations for global manufacturers for decades to come. Strengthening the workforce preparing for the future. As industries evolve, Vietnam must also invest in its workforce. While Haiphong's labor force has been a key strength, the shift toward high-tech industries requires better education, technical skills, and digital expertise. To meet this demand, the government is working on expanding STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics education, preparing workers for jobs in semiconductor production, software development, and advanced manufacturing, attracting foreign expertise, encouraging international companies to train local workers in specialized skills, promoting vocational training programs, helping workers transition from traditional manufacturing jobs to higher-skilled roles in automation, robotics, and green energy. By focusing on education and skill development, Haiphong ensures that its workforce remains competitive and adaptable, making it easier for companies to invest in high-tech industries. The future of Haiphong, a manufacturing powerhouse for decades to come. Despite global economic uncertainties, Haiphong's long-term strategy is clear. Diversify export markets to reduce dependence on the U.S. Invest in high-tech, value-added industries to increase competitiveness. Continue infrastructure development to support trade and logistics. Strengthen workforce training to prepare for the future of manufacturing. By executing this strategy, Haiphong is ensuring that it remains one of Asia's top industrial hubs, capable of adapting to global trade shifts and economic challenges. Whether dealing with new trade policies, geopolitical tensions, or technological advancements, Haiphong's proactive approach will secure its place in the global economy for decades to come. The need for flexible supply chains. As global trade, dynamic shift, and economic uncertainties grow, companies in Haiphong and across Vietnam are rethinking their supply chain strategies. In the past, manufacturers focused on finding the cheapest locations for production, but now the priority is flexibility and adaptability. The trade war between the US and China, disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, and geopolitical tensions have all highlighted the risks of relying too heavily on a single country for manufacturing. For Haiphong's businesses, this means developing supply chains that can quickly adjust to new trade policies, tariff changes, and disruptions in transportation. Companies are now investing in multi-country production strategies, diversifying their supply networks to minimize risks and ensure long-term stability. Beyond cost, the rise of agile supply chains. For decades, global manufacturers made decisions based primarily on cost efficiency. Countries with low wages and cheap production costs attracted the most investment, and companies built massive supply networks that depended on a few key locations for production. However, recent global events have forced companies to rethink this approach. In today's trade environment, the best supply chain is not the cheapest, it's the most flexible. The goal is to reduce dependency on any single country so that, if tariffs, trade restrictions, or logistical challenges arise, production can be easily shifted elsewhere. For Haiphong, this shift has both challenges and opportunities. On one hand, the city must continue to attract investment despite companies diversifying production to other countries. On the other, Haiphong has a chance to position itself as a key player in global supply chain flexibility, offering companies a reliable, adaptable, and well-connected manufacturing base. Vietnam's role in the China Plus One strategy. One of the biggest trends in modern manufacturing is the China Plus One strategy, where companies maintain production in China but also expand into another country to reduce risk. Vietnam, especially Haiphong, has become one of the top destinations for this strategy due to its strategic location, skilled workforce, and strong infrastructure. Many companies now split their production between China and Vietnam, allowing them to avoid over-reliance on China and reduce exposure to U.S. tariffs. Benefit from Vietnam's free trade agreements, which provide better access to global markets. Take advantage of Haiphong's deep water port and logistics network for efficient, shipping. For Haiphong, this means continuous growth in foreign investment, as more companies look to expand their operations in Vietnam while keeping a presence in China. Multi-country manufacturing, the future of global trade. While the China Plus One strategy is a major shift, some companies are taking things even further by adopting a multi-country manufacturing model. Instead of relying on just China and Vietnam, companies are now expanding operations across multiple regions, including Mexico to serve the North American market, India for technology and textile production, Thailand and Indonesia for additional Southeast Asian manufacturing options. This approach gives businesses the ultimate flexibility, allowing them to adjust production quickly based on trade policies, labor costs and supply chain disruptions. For Haiphong, the challenge is to stay competitive in this evolving landscape. While some companies will continue expanding in Vietnam, others may shift parts of their operations to different regions. To keep investment flowing, Haiphong must offer more than just low costs. It must provide world-class logistics, skilled labor, and a business-friendly environment. Investing in supply chain resilience. To ensure that Haiphong remains a key player in global supply chains, companies and policymakers are making strategic investments in smart logistics and automation. Haiphong is introducing advanced supply chain management systems, warehouse automation, and AI-driven logistics, making its manufacturing base more efficient. Supply chain transparency. Businesses are increasing tracking and monitoring capabilities to quickly identify and resolve disruptions in production and transportation. Local sourcing and manufacturing. Vietnam is working to reduce dependence on imported raw materials, encouraging local suppliers to grow and meet international demand. Free trade zone development. Haiphong is expanding its economic zones, allowing companies to import and export goods with fewer trade restrictions and lower costs. By embracing supply chain flexibility and resilience, Haiphong is preparing for a future where adaptability is the key to success. The city is no longer just a low-cost manufacturing destination. It is evolving into a high-tech, globally integrated industrial hub that can support the ever-changing demands of modern trade. The road ahead, Haiphong's competitive edge. As global trade continues to shift, Haiphong must remain one step ahead. The city's success depends on continuing to attract high-tech investment by offering state-of-the-art infrastructure, ensuring a skilled workforce that can handle advanced manufacturing and automation, expanding logistics and transportation networks to maintain fast and efficient trade routes, strengthening partnerships with international markets to reduce over-reliance on any single country. Haiphong's journey from a quiet coastal city to a global manufacturing hub has been remarkable. Now, as the world moves toward a new era of supply chain flexibility, Haiphong has the opportunity to become a leader in the future of international trade. By investing in resilience, adaptability, and innovation, Haiphong is ensuring that it remains a vital link in the global supply chain, no matter how the world's trade landscape evolves. Haiphong's future in global trade. Haiphong's transformation from a quiet port city to a global manufacturing hub has been nothing short of extraordinary. In just a decade, it has become a key link in international supply chains, attracting billions in foreign investment, expanding its industrial zones, and developing world-class infrastructure. However, as global trade continues to evolve, Haiphong must navigate new challenges and seize emerging opportunities to maintain its economic momentum. With increasing geopolitical tensions, shifting trade policies, and advancements in technology, Haiphong's future will depend on its ability to adapt, innovate, and strengthen its position as a leading trade and manufacturing hub, remaining competitive in an unpredictable global market. As countries and businesses rethink their supply chain strategies, Haiphong must ensure that it remains an attractive destination for investment. While low labor costs and favorable trade agreements have helped Vietnam grow, the future will be determined by innovation, efficiency, and sustainability. To stay competitive, Haiphong must focus on industrial upgrading, moving beyond low-cost manufacturing into high-value industries like electronics, semiconductors, renewable energy and electric vehicles. Digital transformation, investing in smart factories, AI-driven logistics, and automation to make production more efficient. And cost-effective, green and sustainable growth, developing eco-friendly industrial zones, reducing carbon emissions, and adopting renewable energy solutions to align with global sustainability goals. Infrastructure expansion, the key to long-term growth. Haiphong's success has been largely built on world-class infrastructure, and continued investments will be critical to its future. The government is expanding the deep-water port, building new expressways, and constructing railway links to enhance trade efficiency. Key upcoming projects include expansion of Lac Huyen deep-water port, adding 6 new berths to handle increased global shipping demand, completion of the Vietnam-China Railway by 2030, strengthening trade links between Haiphong and China, development of smart industrial parks, attracting high-tech industries and international businesses with modern, fully integrated production zones. These infrastructure improvements will further cement Haiphong's position as a global trade gateway. Navigating global trade uncertainty. One of the biggest challenges Haiphong faces is the uncertainty of global trade policies. The possibility of new U.S. tariffs on Vietnamese goods remains a risk, and companies are diversifying production across multiple countries to reduce exposure to trade tensions. To mitigate these risks, Haiphong is focusing on expanding trade, partnerships, strengthening agreements with Europe, Japan, and ASEAN to reduce reliance on the U.S. market, ensuring compliance with international trade rules, cracking down on illegal transshipment, and enhancing transparency in export practices, encouraging domestic production of raw materials, reducing dependence on imports, especially from China. By diversifying markets and ensuring strong trade policies, Haiphong can remain a stable and attractive investment destination despite global uncertainties. The road ahead. Haiphong's place in the future of global trade. Haiphong's journey is far from over. The city has already proven its ability to adapt and grow, and the next phase of development will determine whether it remains a leading global manufacturing hub or loses its edge to competing regions. To secure its future, Haiphong must focus on innovation and technology, encouraging research and development in automation, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing. Sustainable growth, ensuring that economic expansion does not come at the expense of the environment. Strengthening trade resilience, preparing for potential trade disruptions by diversifying export destinations and supply sources. With the right strategies, Haiphong is well positioned to become a global trade leader for decades to come. Its success will depend on its ability to adapt, evolve, and embrace the future of international commerce. No longer just an alternative to China, Haiphong is carving out its own identity as a manufacturing powerhouse and economic driver of Vietnam. As the world's supply chains continue to shift, one thing is clear: Haiphong is here to stay. Enjoyed this story? Show your support by like, share, and leaving a comment below. Your engagement helps us grow and continue bringing you more valuable and exciting stories. Subscribe now so you never miss out. Vocabulary words from the story and their explanations. Manufacturing hub, a city or region that specializes in large-scale industrial production, attracting factories and foreign investments. Trade surplus, when a country exports more goods than it imports, creating a positive trade balance. Infrastructure, the basic physical and organizational structures, roads, ports, railways, etc., needed for an economy to function efficiently. Supply chain, the entire process of producing and delivering a product from raw materials to manufacturing and distribution. Foreign direct investment, FDI, investments made by foreign companies into another country's businesses, often by building factories or industrial facilities. Tariffs, taxes imposed on imported goods, usually to protect domestic industries or influence trade relations. Deep water port, a port capable of handling large cargo ships, allowing direct trade with distant global markets. Economic zone, a designated area within a country that offers tax benefits and incentives to attract businesses and boost economic activity. Diversification, expanding trade, investments or industries to reduce dependence on a single source or market. Logistics, the management of transporting goods efficiently, including shipping, warehousing and distribution. Industrial expansion, the growth of factories and production facilities in a city or country, often driven by investment and demand. Global supply chains, international networks of businesses involved in producing and distributing products across multiple countries. Trade agreements, formal deals between countries that set the rules for importing and exporting goods, often reducing tariffs and barriers. Free trade zone, a designated area where goods can be traded without customs duties, making international trade easier. Automation, the use of technology, such as robots or AI, to perform tasks previously done by humans in manufacturing and logistics. Investment strategy, a planned approach to placing capital in industries, infrastructure or markets for long-term growth and profitability. Resilience, the ability of an economy, business or supply chain to withstand disruptions and recover quickly.